Welcome to Doc's Lab and our third Master Series. Welcome to Doc's Lab and our third Master Series. I do believe this is the 12th video in our third Master Series on production engineering, and in this video we want to talk about playing and working within your means and your abilities and your range. So it's a fairly complicated subject that really has a lot of aspects to it that is really going to help you become a better producer so that you actually progress well rather than become a very frustrated producer that doesn't progress the way you should, because playing within your means and your abilities is going to transcend into you doing these things, and also as you're producing other people, that you can see when somebody needs to play within their abilities or within their range so that you can help them come out with a much better production that's done in a way that they can handle it with their performance abilities or within their range and their understanding of music theory and things like that. So let's take a little look at playing within your range and abilities. Okay, so the first thing we want to address is your wisdom and knowledge about the subject of music production. So I've been trying to address these things so far in my Master Series so that the more in touch and the wiser you are and the more knowledge you have about all these things that we've talked about so far and that we're going to talk about, your level. It's just like if I take any one of them, let's say music theory. Now, we talked about music theory. Now, and if I take music theory and I say, well, these are the most basic building blocks, how well do you understand them? How well are you able to utilize them? How well are you able to take that wisdom and knowledge and apply it in your production? You know, and the level that you do understand is where you should be working. As you become more knowledgeable and wiser and a more refined producer and individual as far as things we're talking about in music production, then you can apply those, but not before, because then you come out with bad productions, you get frustrated, you're not doing things well or properly. And it's like music connoisseur is another one. I can address all these, but I'm just going to address a couple. You know, how does an oboe really sound done well? You know, how much have you immersed yourself? You really want to use oboe or saxophone or some kind of different kind of jazz drum kit that you're putting in this production. How well have you immersed yourself that, picked it apart, did all the things we talked about, and really have immersed so that you know what it's supposed to sound like when it sounds good. And when you do something that's a little bit off, that's not really in that genre, you're adding some other flavor, do you know what you're doing? Do you know what it's supposed to sound like when it sounds good? At what level are you a music connoisseur so that you can utilize that and take on that type of a project or that type of instrumentation or that arrangement or that composition or that performance, ... How well are you well versed as a connoisseur to be able to understand if you're doing a good job by hearing it? And then how well do you understand the theory of what's happening there so that you can produce it? On and on and on with all the things we talked about. This is your wisdom and knowledge playing within your abilities, which sounds frustrating, but a simple production done well within your abilities and your knowledge and your wisdom is much better to do. You'll progress much more as a producer than trying to do things that are way outside of your abilities or outside of your realm of wisdom or outside your realm of knowledge that you're just not ready to tackle yet. As you get better and better and better and you progress in all these areas, you will do better productions, more complex productions, more refined productions. But don't do things that are way outside of your wisdom and knowledge and abilities there. Before you're ready, you will be a much happier producer and you will progress much better, because you don't know how many times that I get somebody that'll be either trying this complicated stuff and I'm like, bro, play those 3 chords on the guitar, play that little simple bass riff, do that real simple drum thing, do that real simple keyboard change, do that real simple vocal thing and that real simple harmony behind there, and it came out sounding awesome. And they'd call me up and they'd just be like, whoa, bro, I slowed down and then I really put feeling into it and I really took my time with the articulations and I really applied the things you're talking about. And, oh, yeah, dude. And the audio engineering was simple after that, because I got a really good production, even though it was simple. And it's a huge thing for you to get in your head, to play within your abilities of how, what your level of knowledge and wisdom and how much of a connoisseur and how good of a producer you are. Stay within where you're at, and, and don't go out of that until you're ready. Does that make sense? When you get really good and comfortable and proficient in any area, then step out and apply it, but not before. And it's the first huge thing about staying within your abilities and means, talking about your wisdom and knowledge and how refined and knowledgeable and wise of a producer you are when you go to tackle any project. So let's take a look at the next thing we should consider. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is playing within your abilities. This is very simple, but it has a couple different aspects. The first aspect of it is we talked about, as a producer, that you should work on become a pretty good vocalist, keyboardist, and have an instrument of choice. So the better you get with them, the better you'll be able to apply them. But let's just take, let's say that my main instrument is the guitar. So playing within my abilities means that, if it means that I can only play 3 chords, da 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 da, and I'm able to do that really well, do all the articulations well, the muting, the dynamics of it, da da da, on and on and on. That if play within my means and don't try to play something way more complicated than I'm able to perform at this time whenever I'm doing my performances, because I can write down on the software all kinds of complicated stuff, but that doesn't mean that I'll be able to perform it on a ukulele, right? So, I need to, if I'm going to perform on a ukulele, I better be sure what I can perform and what play within my abilities, what I'm able to do well. Does that make sense? And the same with vocals. If you're going to, try to write some kind of vocal that's just, wow, that is pretty cool, bro, but you can't perform it and you come out with a really bad performance, even though you've written it really well, that's not good. You want to be able to play, write things within your abilities. Or if you're working with other people to, compose things in the production within their abilities. Don't go outside of their abilities. It's okay to push the envelope a little bit now and then, but you will be much happier with a simpler production performed well. So that even if it's a simple production, that every instrument and performance is done really well, even though it's simple, you're going to be a much happier producer. And you add little complexities here and there that you'll be surprised that you don't need to do that much really super complicated stuff to really come out sounding with a really good production anyway. So it's a huge thing to play within your abilities, whether you're singing, whether you're playing the guitar or the bass, or you've got a jazz kit. It's like with the advent of VSTs, we can do a whole lot of things that we don't have a grand piano in our house or a nice jazz kit or something like that. So if we start working with those things, we have to do things within our abilities. So that means if I'm going to play this part or write all these MIDI stuff out, am I able to edit that and edit that MIDI well enough to where it sounds like it's a good performance, like a good performer did it well? Can I do that? If I take out this really wild jazz drum kit with these Latin percussion things, am I able to edit all that stuff to where it comes out sounding like professionals did a really good performance? That is a huge thing to get in your head, because the more you understand, no, I'm not, so you want to simplify it. I might want to use a maraca in there or a shaker. I'm going to try to keep it simple and do it, listen to it, refine myself, able to use it well, able to edit those things well. Because you'd be amazed, you can work right out of the box with tons of instruments, but when you cross that line to where it's not your performance that you're putting in MIDI information, then you have to edit the MIDI to where it sounds like a really good performance. You have to hone your abilities there as a producer, just like you'd be honing your abilities as a guitarist or a bass player or yourself as a vocalist or anything like that. It's a different environment because you're doing it inside the software, but it's the same concept. So whether you're outside of there doing work on your vocals within your abilities or writing a keyboard part for a jazz production and being able to edit those things well enough to where it sounds like a great jazz pianist played it, either way, it's the same thing, playing within your abilities and your means so that it comes out sounding good. And, doing things within your abilities. We talked about in the last part, compose within your abilities. Use within your knowledge and wisdom of what you're able to do so you don't get lost. And you will find as you progress there and you start putting productions together, your productions will slowly get more complex and more complicated. Your abilities will improve and you will do much more complicated and more professional sounding work because your abilities as a musician will improve and your abilities at editing any MIDI work you're doing with any kind of instrumentation will improve to where it sounds like professional work done, staying within your abilities. So let's take a look at the next thing we need to worry about. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is staying within your range. This is something like playing within your abilities so that you have stuff that comes out sounding good, that's done within your abilities. But playing within your range, we're talking about basically vocals here. So I've learned that I have a range. Now, sometimes I'll push the envelope a little bit, but I know what my range is. Whenever I'm doing harmonies or whenever I'm doing main vocals, then I know that if I start singing something, and then I go, I got to stay within my range to where it sounds good. If I do harmonies, yeah, 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 it has to be within my range. I can't do stuff outside of my range. The way you increase your range is practice. Practicing, stretching your vocal cords, reaching different things you're not normally able to do, and you will improve your range. But you will have a range at some point in your career as a producer. Now, you want to be able to produce within your range. So whenever you're composing and you're writing, you have to take that into consideration. What is your range? From where to where are you really comfortable and can perform well so that while you're composing, you take that into consideration so that you can go do good performances within your range. So it's a huge thing so that you really take the time to look at your range so that you're really working on your performance and understand your range so that you do stuff that comes out sounding good, that instead of pushing it to where it comes out sounding bad and then you're doing bad productions that are outside of your range that you can't sing in that range. It comes out sounding horrible no matter how much you want to. It would come out sounding much better if you transposed it into a key or into an octave range that you can handle so that it comes out sounding good, so you can actually sing. Everybody can sing, and the more you sing, the better you're going to get as a singer, right? And the more you practice. So if you sing well, within your range, stop pushing it outside your range so that it comes out sounding bad. Work on singing good and being a good singer and harmony person within your range. So you really need to think about that and take the time to figure out what that is and take that in consideration when you're producing. So let's take a look at the last thing we need to consider. Okay, so the last thing we want to consider is ourselves as producers. So you're watching this master series because you want to be a music producer. A lot of you are doing this because you want to produce your own stuff. So I'm addressing it from that perspective. But also, if we're producers, we're probably going to end up producing somebody else. So all the things we're talking about, we need to apply to anybody we come in contact with that we're working with. So all the things we talk about, working within the people that we're working within their knowledge and wisdom abilities and their realm of wisdom so that they can produce with where they're comfortable. within their abilities, making sure that we help them produce stuff that's within their abilities and what they're able to do. Rather than have a bad production, it's better to have them have a simple production done well than something they're not able to do. And their range, their vocalists, their harmony people, where they actually are able to perform and within their range whenever we're working with them, we want to make sure that they're in an area where they're comfortable rather than outside of their comfort zone, so they don't get a bad production. And us as producers, it's a huge area that we have to work on ourselves and with the people we're working on, to make sure that we take that in consideration and do a good job in those areas. So peace out, love. I certainly hope you enjoyed this next video on our third master series, and I will see you in the next video.